When we talk about international politics, or even we talk about some of the domestic issues, too often we tend to think about the politicians or even some of the policymakers. But today, under globalization, it seems to be the fact that everyone has a voice to hear. And meanwhile, everyone has the opportunity to voice the oppositions, especially related to one field, which is social media. If you know that today, under the social media influence, one of the significant, should I say, the most famous celebrities, which is Elon Musk, not only recently he purchased one of the social media giants, which is Twitter, and also he's very vocal regarding some of the domestic policies and also international affairs. Some people believe that Elon Musk is really stepping out his comfort zone, trying to make his voice heard, but meanwhile, other people believe that Elon Musk is actually doing a disservice to the Twitter. So that's why today in this episode, we're going to talk about the role of Elon Musk and why, and he's very much interested in meddling not only with the domestic affairs in the US, but also international relations. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to invite our distinguished speaker today is Professor Bhaskar Chakravorty. Now, Professor Chakravorty is the professor and also the Dean of Global Business at Tufts University. And of course, if you follow his work, he's the author of the latest article, which is entitled "To Save Twitter, Elon Musk Should Fire Himself." Well, Professor, and welcome to The Missing Piece.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for inviting me to this terrific program.
Well, Professor, the pleasure's all mine. I want to get started with our questions. As we mentioned before, when we talk about Elon Musk, of course, everyone knows that he's a billionaire and also he started his own business in Tesla or SpaceX and etc. But after purchasing Twitter, one of the social media platforms, not only influence people domestically but also internationally. Now, according to your article, it's so interesting that you said he should fire himself in order to restore the stability of the business. Can you help us to understand why?
Yeah, so I think there are kind of several reasons why I fear that Elon Musk is the wrong owner of Twitter. And, that list can become quite long for a number of different reasons, not the least of which being his actions after he walked into the building with the kitchen sink in hand and essentially completed the takeover of the company. And then ever since he stepped into the building, there's been chaos. Now, we could have a healthy debate about whether, we should give Elon Musk time to turn Twitter around. Maybe he's got some sort of a secret formula for turning companies or even industries into, entirely new beings. He's, managed to pull off, an electric car that's very successful. He's managed to, put rockets in space and create, space travel and rocket ships as a private industry. So he's done some pretty impressive things in other business arenas. So one could always argue that let's give the man time. Now, the primary reason why I believe that he's the wrong owner of Twitter and he should fire himself is because I think he is hopelessly compromised in terms of conflicts of interest coming from other businesses that he oversees. In particular, I'm concerned about the fact that a business like Tesla, which is his electric car company, very well known and much loved by a lot of Tesla owners, Tesla has an enormous international footprint. And in particular, if you think about Tesla's footprint in China, if you were to strip China away from the Tesla value chain, the company could be in serious jeopardy. Some of Tesla's biggest, most significant market is in China. It is also the largest. China is the home of the largest assembly plant for Tesla. the sources of Tesla's batteries are in China. I can keep going. There's just so much that is critical as far as China is concerned and Tesla's business objective. Now, the reason why this is an important issue, just one example of an important conflict of interest, is that even though the social media platform Twitter is banned in China, Twitter is quite important for China to maintain its public profile in global settings. So Chinese diplomats and Chinese operators use Twitter to not only develop positive narratives associated with China, but also to squash any dissenting narratives outside China. So if the Chinese authorities were to use the leverage they have over Elon Musk because of the fact that they have such a strong and critical connection to Tesla, we could see the Twitter platform itself being manipulated by the Chinese propaganda machine. So I worry about that. And then we can, continue to go into a variety of other arenas, such as SpaceX, another very critical company for Elon Musk. Some of the significant investors in SpaceX are countries like Saudi Arabia, Oman, and several others. They have invested in SpaceX, and they also have repressive regimes and a need to control the narrative, both within their own borders and outside. So they could use the social media platform of Twitter to manipulate that narrative because they have leverage over a different business interest that Elon Musk has got. And finally, coming to Twitter itself, while Elon Musk on paper paid $44 billion to purchase Twitter, that money was raised partially from outside sources. So most significantly, the state of Qatar is a reasonably big investor in Twitter. Now, currently, the FIFA World Cup is going on at Qatar, and there's been going into the World Cup and even through it, plenty of criticism as to whether Qatar, legitimately won the rights to host the World Cup, and there are lots of concerns about social repression in the country and human rights abuses of migrant workers who helped build those stadiums. Now, for Qatar, it's really important to be able to turn that narrative around, and having access and leverage over a social media platform like Twitter is a great way to essentially, launder your reputation. So many reasons why all these different ties into Elon Musk, which are primarily international and primarily connected to repressive regimes, makes me wonder whether a platform like Twitter should be connected or run by Elon Musk, because it could be used as a tool for manipulation.
Professor, it's so significant and also meaningful just to hear how you dive into that the foreign investment or also the foreign partnership could actually jeopardize the business, not only for Twitter, but also for any other companies, because mainly we don't want to, or the last thing we want is to turn the business into a political propaganda platform for foreign influence. But meanwhile, Professor, not too long ago, that another video came out. It's not about Elon Musk, but about the current CEO for the company of Apple. So when the CEO called Tim Cook was questioned regarding the human rights issue in China and also around the world, I can't remember exactly how he answered, but if I can paraphrase it, what Cook was to say, or what Cook was really trying to make the point to say, well, we're a businessman, and in other words, we're looking for ways to help investors, and we're looking for ways to make business relationship not related to social issues or not related to political interest. So again, Professor, going back to the point that what you said about Musk regarding Chinese influence or Qatar influence and etc., why is it so important that when we look at the business growth or the business opportunity linked with social unrest or linked with political suppression, how does that even work today? And why is it significant for us to talk about this when we look at Elon Musk?
Yeah, it's a great question, Will. And I think there are sort of many questions baked into your inquiry here. One question has to do with what is the objective and mission and purpose of business. Would argue that business should be laser focused on generating profits and providing returns to people who own the business. It could be a private entity or a group of private entities, or it could be a group of shareholders who buy and sell stock on public equity markets. And one could argue that that is the purpose of business. One could also argue that business has a larger purpose. Business has an impact on society at large, and in addition to looking at the financial bottom line, there are other social bottom lines, as it were, that businesses ought to look out for, such as calling out and stopping and reversing violations of civil liberties everywhere in the world, providing people a decent standard of living, providing jobs, building up communities, and so on and so forth. Now, we could have a long discussion about that. Let's come back to Twitter itself. What's the purpose of Twitter? Well, there are many different ways in which you could frame that. One is exactly the way that Elon Musk has framed it, which is he has said that the mission of Twitter is to be the most reliable source of information anywhere in the world. That is coming from Elon Musk, the most reliable source of information anywhere in the world. Now, the moment I have that tool become a propaganda tool by repressive governments, then it no longer serves the purpose of being the most reliable source of information anywhere in the world. So immediately, the mission is compromised. Second, if you say that Twitter is a business and it needs to turn a profit, well, how is Twitter going to turn a profit? Currently, historically, 90% of Twitter's revenues have come from advertising. Now, if a whole bunch of content on Twitter is propaganda, or as is currently the case, because so many of the content moderation staff have been laid off, there's a lot of harmful content, hate speech that is being spread over Twitter. Would you want advertisers to put their names, their brands against hateful content? Most advertisers would have some concerns. So we are beginning to see a lot of significant advertisers essentially pause their advertising on Twitter. And many have said, we're not coming back until Elon Musk leaves. So what that means is, from a business perspective as well, Twitter is going to fail. So it's not serving its original mission of being the most reliable source of information in the world. It's not serving the purpose of turning a profit. If all it becomes is Elon Musk's private playground, who cares? Let him have his playground. He's a billionaire. He can have lots of playgrounds. And frankly, we don't care. But unfortunately, we need Twitter because there are very few alternatives to this platform. Currently, Twitter is being used for not just for people, sharing information or sending news. It's being used for protests and dissent around the world, for giving the voiceless a voice. So we do need this platform.
Professor, I want to dive into the article that you wrote. Again, it's so interesting that we see on one hand that Elon Musk took over the Twitter business as the sole owner. But also, on the other hand, he's been very active in engaging. The first step is the domestic affairs in the US. So in other words, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that he restored the Twitter account of former US President Donald Trump. And also, on the Twitter, he's been very vocal to protect the constitution of the country. Now, Professor, from your perspective, again, as the business owner, we know that we should know how to draw the line in the sand when it comes to politics and when it comes to a political agenda. But my question, again, on behalf of the viewers is, why is Elon Musk so interested in taking a stand towards the Constitution, or why is he so much involved in this domestic affairs first? I mean, again, what was the purpose? Is he trying to reshape the image of Twitter today, or he's gearing up for something else so that people can understand after Elon Musk became the new CEO, this is no longer just a social media platform, but also, as we mentioned before, is a platform for the voiceless. What do you think?
Yeah, so, as to what's going on inside Elon Musk's head, I'm not going to speculate on that, right? I mean, far too many people have been trying to do that. Has declared himself speech absolutist. He feels that content should flow freely on the platform, unmoderated, unrestricted, uncensored, unless it hits some absolutely egregious limits. And he hasn't declared what those limits are. He has said that he wants to have a content moderation committee that might provide some oversight, but there's been no details. So, I can understand, his perspective that we should have free speech available on the content, unmoderated, and, anybody who had been deplatformed, like Donald Trump and various others, he puts them back. But then, when Kanye West, who currently goes by the name of Ye, put out an offensive anti-Semitic symbol, he was taken off the platform. So Elon Musk is not above, curtailing people's rights to being on the platform. Now, the issue is what does Elon Musk want? This is where I really, and of course I'm speculating, I don't know the man. I don't really think he intended to buy the platform. He has landed with the platform now in his hands because he made some brash moves earlier, saying that he could do a better job running this Twitter than current management. He's a man who loves attention, and essentially he gets a dopamine shot every single time people respond to his posts on Twitter. So this gives him an enormous amount of personal joy just to have hundreds of millions of people just sort of going up and down the system based on the next utterance he makes. So this gives him a sense of control, a sense of power, and the feedback is enormously important for him. So every time he does something controversial, whether it's bringing Trump back or kicking Kanye West out, more people talk about it, and he feels good that he's in control. Beyond that, I really don't think he has any logical pathway right now to getting to essentially what is a good business practice of getting to stability, profitability, and meeting the mission of the platform, which is to become the most reliable source of information in the world. Now, as far as the Constitution is concerned, what is free speech, what is not free speech? I mean, this is a private platform. He has the right to curtail speech as he wants to. It's not a violation of the Constitution. He has no obligation to allow anybody to say anything. Now, there's a lot of hateful speech that is proliferating on not just Twitter, but other platforms. The problem that we would have as a society is that if that speech becomes the dominant narrative, and we have seen hateful speech go up after Elon Musk's takeover, that kind of hate can go viral. It could influence, people who are sort of on the margin, whether it's on the margin of politics or on the margin of mental health, and they could do something that could be destructive, that could, tear the social fabric and, break the social compact we have with each other. We've also seen that it could potentially be anti-democratic. A lot of lies and misinformation have led to elections being manipulated. So I can keep going on this front, but I do believe that free speech is not a given. It's something that we need to earn, and there needs to be some responsible sharing of speech and responsible moderation of content on these platforms.
Professor, I know you're very busy. I got two more questions before letting you go. Now, I want to go back to the article. I want to read something that you wrote, and I quote, Twitter's own business pressures made incomparably worse by the chaos that Elon Musk has unleashed will be the final nail in the coffin of a Musk-run Twitter. As he attempts to make the platform profitable, he will severely jeopardize its mission, creating a vicious cycle where compromised trust could scare off users and advertisers. And I think this is something that we touch on briefly. But again, Professor, I would like for you to elaborate a little bit more, because we know previously that the Twitter was already in trouble because some of the informations favored certain political parties supposed to damage certain political parties were completely hidden. But right now, as soon as Elon Musk took over and we begin to see more truth and we begin to see another side of the dirt that came out. So, Professor, coming to you is, how much do you think at this moment the politicians or the business owners or anybody at this moment could trust Twitter, this platform, as what you said, a reliable channel or a reliable way to really identify the truth in order to make sure that this is the platform, it's really helping people or generating more interest? What do you think?
Well, I think there's, obviously people who are users of Twitter or any social media platform, when they get some information on that platform, that they get the content, if they can put that content in context, and they have other sources to turn to do fact checking and get a few different perspectives. There is a version of the truth that you do get on these social media platforms, and certainly Twitter is a preeminent one among them. The problem is not everybody has that capacity. Not everyone will place the content in context. So if I see a hateful post from somebody, I could put it in context and say, this is a person who's got a political agenda, or this person is just trying to get attention, or this person is trying to, just spread hate and potentially foment violence. And I can dismiss that content. There are others who get influenced by it. So I think the more harmful content and hateful speech and misinformation proliferates on Twitter, it essentially pollutes the system. And as the system gets more and more polluted, it becomes a less trusted place to go, because people have to constantly sift through, all the bad stuff in order to get some good stuff. And once that ratio, turns to, an impossible degree, people will say, I don't want to waste my time, looking for news and information and updates here. I'll just go someplace else. So once that happens, the vicious cycle takes over. Advertisers realize that people are not visiting this platform to the same extent. They stop advertising or they reduce advertising. And that forces, the owners of the platform, in this case, Elon Musk, to encourage, more users by bringing in extreme elements. So when Trump comes back on the platform, all of Trump's followers, spend more time on the platform. And so you end up with this, the system just becoming a mutually reinforcing cycle, heading towards essentially a downward loop.
Professor, I want to wrap up our conversation by going back to, interestingly, the last paragraph and the last sentence, and you wrote, and I quote, "He," which means Elon Musk, "should swallow his pride, take a loss, sell the company to a better owner." Now, this is a very interesting idea, because your article entitled that Elon Musk should fire himself to save Twitter, and then you said it's better or maybe ideal to sell the company to a better owner. So, Professor, again, from your perspective, what kind of person or what kind of companies it's actually suitable or actually will be ideal to manage the social media platform like Twitter? I mean, certainly it's not a person who is very prideful, and certainly it's not the person who he can take a loss. But again, at this moment, let's just say if you were the consultant, what advice would you give to the company or to the person in order to purchase the Twitter or keep the authenticity of the social media platform?
Yeah, I think there are sort of two possible better owners of Twitter. One quote unquote better owner could be a nonprofit. And basically, what it does is it sees Twitter as an essential platform for getting reliable information. And the objectives of this owner is not to not to service the financial bottom line. It's good for it to earn revenues, but ultimately the objective is to moderate content responsibly and have very transparent rules for what content would be allowed on the platform, and also hold itself accountable to a set of principles and ethics. And by the way, these principles should be global. We should not be having these conversations solely limited to the United States or solely limited to some sort of a spat between Twitter and Kanye West or Twitter and Donald Trump. This is meant for anybody who has access to the internet. So we need to think about this from a global perspective. 2/3 of Twitter's users are outside the United States, and still we are talking about issues that are US centric. So we really, really need to take a global view of this. So that's kind of one perspective, which is, it basically becomes a social utility, and it's funded by a combination of philanthropy or, some other form of, corporate social responsibility, or essentially gets subsidized by a number of other groups. Another billionaire could just decide that I take over Twitter and I'll fund it without any expectation that this is going to generate, attention for me or generate a profit. So that's one model. Another model is that it's run by professionals, business professionals who recognize the value of this platform as a reliable source of information and for people keeping in touch. And it again takes a very clear sense of responsibility, accountability, and transparency. It has content moderation rules that are applied consistently and uniformly across the world, and that brings in a reliable source of users and eyeballs, which in turn then brings in advertisers, and then you continue to innovate on top of that core platform. One of the problems with Twitter before Elon Musk is that it did very little in terms of innovation. So it needs to find new ways to excite users and excite advertisers, and potentially develop new sources of revenue. And so you could have a very, very savvy social media professional or group of professionals take this over. That professional is not Elon Musk.
Well, you know what, Professor? I hope that anyone who listens to this episode and might be start to thinking about the future of the Twitter, and also hopefully that someone can wake up in the morning and realize I might just be the right person who run the Twitter for the bigger picture. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to speak to Professor Bhaskar Chakravorty. And again, Professor Chakravorty is the Dean of the Global Business at Tufts University. And of course, I strongly encourage everyone to go online, look for his amazing article, which is entitled "To Save Twitter, Elon Musk Should Fire Himself." Well, Professor, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you so much for taking your time to be on the show. And we love to have you back on the show as we continue to pay attention not only Twitter, but also any other business-related topics. Thank you so much for doing this.
Great. Thank you for having me, Will. I enjoyed it.